Since the launch of Black Ops 6, we have dove into a bunch of different reviews for mainly the multiplayer, but looking at various different people around the community. But today's an interesting one because today we are looking at Drifter. Now, Drifter did not like the beta whatsoever, and his review is based off of did the game get better since the beta? And I know he recently got surgery. I don't know how he's doing health-wise. Maybe he talks about that a little bit in this. But I'm actually very curious to say what he said since he was so vocal through the beta, when I think most people were saying the beta was pretty good, and so far the general response since launch has been pretty good as well. So let's see what he has to say.
Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I want to talk about the full release version of Black Ops 6 and answer the question, is it any better than the beta that we played a couple of months ago? I've got a little bit of good news here in the beginning of the video, which is that my surgery was very successful and I recovered much faster than anticipated.
I'm happy for you,
I was able to
Drifter.
get on Black Ops 6 and play a little bit almost every day, even managed to get 2 short streams in, which made me feel good.
Excellent.
And I do want to remind you that I had a very rough time with the beta. I was one of the few
That's what
people
we were
that was very
talking about.
negative and critical of the beta, so I was excited to get on and see if the full version is a little better. So today's video is a little updated review that focuses on multiplayer Black Ops 6. I think it's safe to say that zombies and campaign are fantastic. They're in a good place this year. I don't need to talk about that.
I would agree with that.
But multiplayer still has some issues, to say the least. We're going to start off with the good and work our way towards the bad, and we got a little mix and match sprinkled in here and there, starting with optimization. The optimization for the full release version was much better on both consoles.
As it should be, right?
And it was uniquely better for me on PC because I spent a lot of my time optimizing the settings. Now, I only play on medium to low settings, and I have it capped at 1080p. That's what it was required for me to get it going properly on PC, but it does work a lot better.
I wonder what
now.
like kind of a rig he's got going on.
Fewer reports of crashing and stuttering and bizarre problems on console as well. It seems to be running much better.
I don't know if he's going to go into this, but there's a lot of connectivity issues still.
Unfortunately, the optimization got worse for some people because of an upscaling bug. And I'll go ahead and throw the article up on the screen here. But turning on most of the upscaling options instantly adds a 40% overhead to your system resources. And they're very common options to have on by default. They often help. They're supposed to lower the amount of system resources being spent in the game. But it's a bug from, I think it was Modern Warfare 2 that got somehow upcycled into this engine. Now this
that happens a lot, like a lot more than you think. There's bugs that were in previous builds of the game, and since all of this is based off of Call of Duty HQ, they update something and somehow one of those bugs from a previous update finds its way. This is a common thing, and I think it's a problem with the way that they do updates in the Call of Duty HQ.
I wasn't upscaling anything, so I got lucky on that one. But beyond this, a lot of the issues that people had with the beta, with the texture streaming causing lag and crashes, with the
I'm still having crazy packet bursts
with the game crashing, freezing, stuttering, black screen, very bizarre things in the menus. A massive amount of that seems to have improved, not only for PC, but for PlayStation and for Xbox. Treyarch has made a huge improvement in the overall optimization and stability of Black Ops 6, which I'm very happy about. Moving along, I want to talk about the weapons, which I think are also in a good place. There's a fantastic variety of weapons, and for the first time in a while, they all feel unique. They don't feel kind of samesies like they did in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3.
This is like one of the biggest point that I said in my review of it is that each weapon kind of has its own personality, and I completely agree with what he...
and I'm totally here for that. As far as I can tell, none of them are particularly overpowered. Yet, we're still waiting on a meta to develop, so that could change.
So the meta will take longer to develop because of the prestiging systems.
Are very easy to use, like the XM4, or the Tonto's not very easy, but a lot of people do like it because it can perform very well. Some guns are a little better than others. Some guns are easier to use. Some things people gravitate toward, but overall the balance is fantastic. I think the weapons have a reasonable number of attachments as well, not hundreds or uncountable number of aftermarket parts to fight with. So I'm overall liking that. I'm also
exactly what I said in my review.
System with its potential bonuses for stacking perks. I like having wild cards at my disposal. It's a little frustrating right now that the most common wild card is the one that 54? Gives you 3 flashbangs, but I think that's going to change over time as people unlock more stuff.
So it's everything the first unlocked wild card, so there's a lot of flashbangs right now.
In a good way. It feels right, it makes sense, and I like it. On the topic of weapons and unlocks, there is definitely a grind to unlock everything, as there always is in Call of Duty, but it's not as bad as it has been in the past, especially when it comes to weapon attachments. The weapon attachments aren't as brutal and
So I actually disagree with this. I feel like weapons take almost longer in this game to level up than previous games, but I think less people are noticing it because of the fact that you can unlock camos right from the beginning. So like I'm finishing most of my camos on a weapon, at least up till gold, before I hit max rank on the weapon, like well before, like maybe at the very most rank 30 on a weapon.
Punishing to unlock in MW2 and MW3 as they are here. And I think that leveling and the overall unlocking of Black Ops 6 is probably medium speed for Call of Duty. It's not a slow, brutal slog grind. It's very reasonable.
It's no Vanguard.
But for some players, it might actually be a little bit fast or easier than normal because a lot of the maps are really tiny. We have a lot of shipment clones in this game.
This map sucks. I hate Lowtown. I hate Lowtown.
Just get a bunch of kills and headshots and do your challenges.
I'm starting to feel like I'm alone in that, though, because I've heard some people say they like it.
Negatives, but I want to do one more positive first before I tear into these god-awful maps, which is there have been some improvements to audio. The balance between footsteps and gun sounds is really nice for me right now. I don't know, it's not a huge change from the beta. I don't think they radically rebalanced, but they put some nice touches in there, and I think that the overall footstep balance is a lot nicer.
It is. It's actually pretty good, I think.
Headsets that you can use to hear the footsteps, I would recommend the Astro A50 Gen 5.
That used to be what I use.
Similar to the A50X, except $100 cheaper because they run on USB instead of HDMI. Basically, you can run an Xbox, a PlayStation, a PC, and connect your phone to the base station all at once and mix the audio together. It's a fantastic headset for anybody that has a PC and a console. Code Drifter will save you 5% off. And now let's move into the negatives, which I have a feeling that's what you goblins are really here for. And the number one negative is that the maps and spawns are terrible. I don't want to say they're
pretty
bad.
much everyone's
I don't want to be
complaint.
fluffy about this and be like, it needs improvement. Let's offer constructive criticism. No, it's just, they are awful, terrible maps. And I think we as a community deserve that because that's what we've been asking for. Before I go too much further.
Oh, that's a good point. I kind of actually love this point. So I don't agree that all of the maps are terrible. And actually, you guys made me more aware of this because I said in my video, I'm like, the maps feel bad and I don't know why. And then everyone, not everyone, but a bunch of people commented saying it's the spawns on these maps that make them terrible. And the more I thought about it, like a map like Vorkuta, there's nothing inherently bad with Vorkuta. But what is bad with Vorkuta is that if you play Domination, you are spawning at the very back and you are so far away from action and you can get stuck in that spawn. And then, or you can spawn trap people so bad, there's no balance between spawn trapping and spawns flipping because either spawn system can suck. If they flip too easy, they suck. And if you're spawn trapped too easy, they suck. So there's like this balance in between them and none of the maps seem to find that balance.
Further, I do want to clarify that I think the art team did a fantastic job on the maps. These are your standard Treyarch, beautiful, colorful, varietist, aesthetically pleasing maps. It all kind of fits into the Black Ops aesthetic.
I do agree with that,
A lot of variety, a lot of good looks. Love that part of it. The part of it that I don't like is actually having to play on the maps. The way they're laid out, the way the spawns work, the way the sight lines are is bizarre. All of the maps are really tiny and most of them are very porous in that there's a lot of holes and sight lines and difficult angles to deal with. So you can get shot from 8 different directions at any given time.
A lot of walls you can shoot through as well.
Most of the maps in this game are incredibly small. We have bigger ones than we had during the beta, thank God.
No, red card
sucks.
Even
the biggest of maps isn't really that big
because it's too big
standards. A lot of these are so small, like the stealth bomber one. You can just throw grenades right across from one spawn to another. You spawn looking at each other.
But he's right, though. He's not addressing the point that he originally said, where this is what people have asked for. And for the most part, I think people like the smaller maps. And I think that like when Nuketown comes out, you're going to see everyone's going to play Nuketown. And I think once they implement small map Mosh Pit, everyone's going to play that. So it's the public as a whole actually wants that. I think they just need better spawns.
The majority of the maps are just downright
This map sucks too.
Tiny,
Protocol.
and that's made much worse by the fact that the movement system allows you to navigate them way quicker than we ever have been before. So even the larger scale maps would probably be considered medium in other COD games, and that means that every single game of Black Ops 6 eventually devolves into a match of shipment. I'll go ahead and throw this example up on Reddit. Now, this is from
this
the
is like
tiniest
yeah.
map in the game, but that certainly shouldn't be happening. But that does
Nice
more or
headshots, though.
less line up with my experience of spawn, die, spawn kill, spawn, die over and over and over again. And you might say that's unfair, Drift. You're kind of picking on the very smallest map. But here's the same thing happening in Babylon, which is kind of a medium
this spawn trap
game.
is.
I just spawn, I die. I'm stuck in my spawn. I can't
Yeah,
go anywhere.
that spawn trap's
Grenades
wild.
are rolling into the spawn. If I get out of the spawn, my only objective is to spawn.
Normally, I'm
kill
the one
other
doing the
people
spawn
before
trapping,
they
and I
can
like
position
it, but
themselves or do anything interesting, and you just die over and over again. Some flavor of this mess happens every single match. The problem with these maps is that there are too many players on them. I think a lot of these would play better 4v4 or 5v5.
Man, it sounds like he wants slower games, and personally, I do not want that. But I get the point that he's making.
Sight lines in areas that you have to cover and paths across the map are very open to being flanked all the time from any direction. And the spawn system, there might as well not be a spawn system. It might as well you just randomly pop up on the map wherever, because that's kind of what it feels like. And I
It's definitely
genuinely,
not that, but
truly to the bottom of my soul, hate that style of gameplay. I always have, and I probably always will. The only thing in COD that I've gotten more hate from than my opinions about skill-based matchmaking is my opinions on Shipment and how it's a terrible map. I don't like Shipment. I don't like spawning and dying.
I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I just think people like the fast-paced action. Like, I don't think anyone's out there saying best map ever in Call of Duty, Shipment. Like, no, there's no flow to it. There's no actual good gameplay. It's not like you're going to have a good game of search and destroy on Shipment. It's just fast-paced action and easy to get camos.
Nuketown is fun sometimes, but that's kind of truly my limit.
Nuketown's better than
getting spawn
Shipment.
trapped and killing people that just spawned.
There's
is
more of a
not
map to it.
Fun game to me. That's like bullying. That's like kicking people while they're down. It's not challenging and it's not fun. And even though I, Drifter, hate this, I suspect that a lot of people in the community probably love it. Call of Duty is very centered around achieving your challenges and unlocks, so a lot of people prefer the smaller chaotic maps because they can do challenges more quickly. They also like these small chaotic maps because it's more difficult to camp or get in weird little nooks and crannies or 4 stories up like you could on the bigger maps.
I think it's he's right. It's mostly about challenges.
Beyond that, gamers like to get into the action quickly. They like these chaotic little maps where you can just roll in and start fighting, and you don't have a whole lot of setup. That fast action is kind of what Call of Duty has been known for, which is why every single year when Nuketown or Shipment or whatever version of small map for that game comes out, it's gonna be the most popular map. Anytime Nuketown or Shipment is up on the screen, that's what we're gonna vote for. That's what I'm gonna be playing. That's what we've been voting for a decade. So I think Treyarch just decided to say, whoops, all Nuketown, and everything is about
Which, honestly,
Nuketown or
an interesting
smaller,
play.
because that's what people want. That's what people are playing. That's what they're most here for.
Right? Like, one of the biggest complaints is, oh, like, everyone just plays Shipment and I get bored of Shipment. Okay, so let's put a bunch of different types of Shipment in, and then people will get less bored. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. And they did that with Modern Warfare 3. Like, we had Meat, we had other maps that were like that small. Maybe not as small as Shipment, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Been for a decade now. So even though I, Drifter, the, YouTube commentator, whatever, doesn't like it, I suspect there's a lot of casuals.
This map I hate.
Really
Red
like
Card
it.
I hate.
I think this also appeals to the TikTok generation, as I've heard these described as brain rot maps, designed to just pump dopamines into the brains of younger players with faster and faster combat loops. Part of that sentiment is obviously an age-based hate, but I think it's also partially true. It is trying to appeal to a different audience because Call of Duty has to appeal to a younger generation in order to survive. I'm pushing 40 over here. So if Call of Duty tried to appeal to my demographic, it would go completely extinct within a cycle or two. And now finally, we're down to talking about Omni movement and a little bit about PC gameplay. So I experimented with some new keybinds on my mouse that made Omni movement a little bit easier, and I'm still not great
he plays
at it,
on
but
mouse
I'm
and
trying
keyboard,
to
so I
learn
do
the
think it's
system,
harder
trying
on
to
mouse and
adapt.
keyboard.
I've mostly been using it to get out of trouble and not using it as much to engage people. I don't have the skills to use it to push people.
That's mainly how I use it as well.
To save my own life sometimes. And I'll say for Omni movement, when the system works, it works really well. It can look really good. It can be really fun. You
Play
can
like an action
plays.
hero
I
is
don't
what they always
entirely
say.
dislike this,
You should
And
have
I
seen
think
that guy
that
in
a
his
lot
mini
of my
map.
dislike is a matter of needing to experience this more in order to be able to adapt. However, there is an element of Omni movement and PC gameplay in general that I find very frustrating, which is that Black Ops 6 is an extremely hard game to track enemies on if you're using a mouse. So I'll go ahead and talk about a different streamer. I was watching Shroud stream Black Ops 6, and Shroud and his group of sweats were genuinely struggling in public lobbies to beat the people that it was,
it's also skill-based
skill
matching.
matching them with.
Yeah.
And Shroud was having a great time with the game. He wasn't hating it, but he was struggling a little bit more than usual and went on a little rant to say that he felt that the game was very difficult to play on PC because there's a lot of gun shake when you're shooting it. There's a lot of visual noise and gas
Call of Duty, I think we
ejections.
can
There's a
all
lot of
agree, is
stuff
designed
going
for
on the
controller.
screen. They can make it very hard for you to be able to track your enemy accurately. I mean, honestly, I lose track of my own red dot sometimes because they're so tiny. And there's a lot of stuff going on your screen. You're also probably moving really fast, sliding, doing something with the Omni movement, but your enemies have the ability to move at completely unprecedented speeds. They could instantly fast change directions, left, right, dash,
Drifter's
dive,
loving
do
the
something
concussions
crazy,
right
go
now,
prone.
which makes
It's
me
harder
angry.
to shoot people than ever before. And I acknowledge that they toned down the aim assist on controllers, but
close.
the aim assist is still present, especially in medium range engagements, and that makes a huge difference when compensating for these type of changes and the incredibly fast player movement. I personally found it very difficult to track enemies when they can change directions this quickly and zip away just as fast as they could in Advanced Warfare, while also fighting the visual noise on screen. I acknowledge that Call of Duty is a game designed primarily around consoles and controllers, and I'm glad. Consoles deserve to have a fantastic shooter like that. It's just brutal for me to play on PC. The Omni movement means now I have to track people like I'm playing Quake instead of just lining up my shots for picks.
I mean, Call of Duty used to be on the Quake engine, so
I'm very bad at this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get good at this, but I'm certainly going to try. I don't think I can physically handle a controller yet. My hands aren't really strong enough. So I've clearly got an uphill battle ahead of me. And if you're a PC player or even a console player that prefers mouse and keyboard, that's something to keep in mind because it is very, very demanding of you. So in summary, I think that Black Ops 6 is overall much better than the beta, especially in terms of optimization.
He's not really saying whether he likes it or not, but he's saying he's going to continue to play it and wants to get good. So
the maps are beautiful, but the actual gameplay of the maps and the spawns are terrible.
I agree with most of everything he's saying.
A huge chunk of the game has devolved into true TikTok brain rot shipment nonsense. And it's a little bit hard to play on PC because of some design decisions. That one's a little bit more unique to me. And I'll also at the end of this video acknowledge that a fair bit of this is that I am literally getting old. I'll go ahead and throw the Simpsons meme on the page up here because it accurately describes how I feel.
Honestly,
I couldn't
I
show
feel
the
that a
actual
little bit
clip
too.
where I'd get a copyright strike. But Call of Duty has changed. And I don't think I have fully kept up with all of those changes, if at all. I'm behind the learning curve, and I'm having a difficult time catching up to now. I don't know if I can catch up, but I'm certainly going to try to catch up. I'm not going to go down easy on this.
See, he
one.
wants to play it
Because I don't like
so I
it.
think that's in and of itself a good review.
Keep trying to learn these skills, polish some things, find a new way forward. I'm not going to try to be maximum old head about this and just hate everything for arbitrary reasons.
And I like that.
I'm suspecting I'm going to enjoy this game a lot more when its Warzone component comes out, and maybe we get some new maps and new spawn logic. That'll make it a lot better too. So guys, that is my opinion.
They need to improve the spawns,
Black Ops 6 compared to the beta. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.
So the one thing that I will say in addition to what he said there is I've also heard the opposite of this, where a lot of mouse and keyboard players are finding it easier than controller. Now, I think that's the minority, but I've definitely seen people put out videos and say this game is easier on keyboard and mouse. And for me, that is definitely not true. I'm curious if you're on mouse and keys, what your experience has been with that thus far. But yeah, let me know down in the comments. And it seems like Drifter's enjoying the game quite a bit more.